Now that I would like to introduce the active participant for this session. You have already heard from Alexei and Dean, but then also I would like to introduce one more person, Miss Namaporn Viroji, and then she's from Thailand, and then she has spoken with us about the various issues, and then also issues from Thailand, and then actually we have asked her already some questions regarding the use of the data on FAO GM Foods platform. And then now she's online, but then my little concern now is that I am not seeing her microphone icon next to her name, but then I'm just going to try. Dear Namaporn, can you try to use the microphone and speak, please? Okay, so my concern was right. So we are not hearing her voice. So unfortunate situation. But then, okay, what I can do at this moment, now that my colleagues are running off to help her in connecting the audio, but then what I can do is to provide the answers that we have received, but I'm seeing the icon flashing from the Namaporn's name. So, dear Namaporn, can you hear me? And then can you try to talk, please?
Hello.
Yes,
Hello,
great,
everybody.
wonderful. Yes, we can hear you, Namaporn. Perfect. Okay, so I would really like to ask you for your input about these relevant issues. My question is, how does your country, Thailand, use the data on the database of FAO GM Foods platform?
Thank you, Masami, for the question. Actually, Thailand does not use the database on a regular basis due to, according to our policy, the production and cultivation of GM crops are prohibited. Only GM grains of soybean and corn that are intended to be used as raw material for further processing as food or as feed are allowed for importation. The positive list of those GM traits are provided under the Plant Quarantine Act of the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperative. The food derived from GM crops is required to have a clear label which has to comply with the relevant law under the Ministry of Public Health. Therefore, the safety assessment of import GM traits is on a voluntary basis. That is, if an enterprise would like to government to conduct safety assessment, then they have to provide all relevant information. This is the step where the database is very useful for us, as we can review and use or monitor some information on the authorization of the food derived from recombinant DNA plant in different countries, as well as other related data such as toxicological data and about the approved traits. The information about the authorization will be used for reference. For consideration is in the step of safety assessment of the proposed traits. In addition, we refer to the safety assessment conducted in order to understand the process and the detection protocol about the GM crop. Now, there are only 7 to 8 traits of the GM crops are in the process of safety assessment, but now there is no approved date of GM crop in Thailand. Thank you.
Namaporn, that is very good information. So you do use the website and data to really understand the process and then also the detection protocol so that your control will be strengthened. So that's what I understood from your comment. And second question I have for you is that before I ask Alexei and Dean, I might be asking the very similar questions after I ask Namaporn. So just to be prepared. Okay, Namaporn, could you please let us know that of your insights or any tips that on the effective use of the data? And then according to your experience is fine, but then do you have any suggestions or tips?
Like I said, my experience, I have used the data and the database to learn about the safety assessment process. As my background is more on the chemical risk assessment, such as pesticide and contaminant. That is the different from the way to assess the safety of the GM crop, right? So therefore, the information on the database serves as a learning tool and also provide me the concept of the type of information which is essential or which is nice to know to complete the safety assessment. And I think that the FAO database that link to the other database, namely OECD, if provided, like Anita said, and this is very useful to learn to get more information for Thailand also. Thank you.
Thank you, Namaporn. So Takasan and Bertrand, it seems like a good suggestion coming through. So it seems like that he's suggesting that we have a direct link to OECD from the country basis, which is actually we are kind of working on it. So hopefully that I can get some comments from Takasan and Bertrand later. So now that, as I promised, Alexei, can I ask you too that you mentioned that you do use database, FAO database too. So what do you see and then what is your experience?
What I can say that we can on a national level do what we are doing right now on international level. Because usually it's different focal points, for example, for BCH and for FAO database, you can use information already presented by other focal point. In fact, because I'm a focal point for FAO database, for legislation, I used parts of our national reports that are already posted officially on BCH because you need sometimes official information, and what is presented by other focal point, it's official. So you can speed up process of reporting to the FAO and to the BCH by using the same information. Of course, you must check it, but we can do that kind of interlinking also on national level, not only on international one.
Thank you, Alexei. Yes, indeed. Actually, the BCH has a tremendous amount of information which I do use almost very routinely. But then you are correct that our database is directly connected, the FAO database is connected to the Codex agreement. So our data has to be really official from the government officials. So this is something that, thank you for pointing out. This is something that quite unique. And then we have many Codex members participating in the database. So that could be one indicator that if you are looking only for the official information coming from the government competent authorities, then the platform is the place to look for the information on food safety assessment.
So, uh, if I make just additional comment, it's not official, it's just suggestion. I believe that many of our participants are focal points, so they can do it on their national level within their competencies. I'm not suggesting that we should, use data from one base and put it to the other, but focal points can cooperate on that, and they can use already provided information. It's just suggestion. It's not technique that can be employed, but I think it will be good for focal points to cooperate.
That is a wonderful suggestion. Thank you, Alexei. Actually, that is exactly what I usually consider too, and then also discuss with our colleagues with the OECD and the CBD. We are totally on the same page that we first, I mean, before the first webinar last year, there was a concern that those three databases may be overlapping some points, but then after we clarified the roles and the scope and then kinds of data, we realized that actually that all of them are quite useful, and then but the importance is of course at the global level that we collaborate together, but then at the same time, as you suggest, that focal points of each databases at the national level, if the collaboration is closer, it's actually more useful and then more synergies, and then I think that is a very good point. Thank you, Alexei. Now, Dean, do you have any insights on the same point?
Just to clarify, I'm not one of the focal points. I'm not associated in any way to the competent authority. I work for the Agricultural Research Council, where we do employ the genetic modification technologies and the new technologies coming up. However, as I always travel to Paris for the working group and the task force meetings, whenever I meet people in South Africa, I mention the OECD, and then I also mention these three databases, not just the FAO, because I think it's a lot of people don't know about the databases, and they don't even know about the consensus documents, which sometimes to me is, I don't understand how that can be the case. So from my side, and I think for South Africa, specific, not just specific for the FAO database, but to all three that we've discussed today, it's good to see what is already available. And I am certain that the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries of South Africa, which I said is our competent national authority, uses this to ensure that all provisions and obligations are met relating to the Cartagena Protocol. So from my side, no personal experience, but I recognize the fact that these databases are used by the relevant authorities in South Africa. I'm not most probably answering your question exactly as you wanted to, but that's the best I can do for now.
Thank you so much. No problem. That is exactly what I wanted to hear, actually. Thank you for the good point. And then I think I see some questions in the chat box, but then before I pick up some questions, I would like to prepare Anita that after I pick up the questions, I will go back to you for your final comment. So be prepared. And then, okay, I'm picking up the Abduli from Gambia. So welcome to the webinar. So she's saying that the Gambia is yet to validate its biosafety framework and has never recorded the importation of the GM products. The country is relying on national laws. In this regard, could you use the FAO database to upload national laws that address GM issues? Absolutely, yes. And then this is something that I would like to highlight. Her question is very relevant because lots of countries that the FAO has as a members, they do not have this infrastructure in terms of the IT infrastructures. And then I do know that maintaining the database is very costly, and then also the human resources are needed, both technical and then the how do I say that, the help desk kind of work, the focal points who has to monitor the database, and then also IT has to be there very routinely to check the bugs, and then all kind of fixation for the database maintenance. And sometimes for each country to have this kind of database is extremely challenging. So that's why that the FAO database is there actually for those countries who can just use the IT infrastructure that we have, so that countries can share the relevant information, laws and regulations, and then framework to explain, contact information and food safety risk assessment data there. But then I do understand there are only like probably around 15 or 16 countries who are routinely conducting the food safety assessment of the GM products. So basically that the most of our members, we have about 186 members, codex members, but then most of the members do not conduct safety assessment yet, but then they are really willing to share this kind of information. So Gambia, you are very welcome to share the data and use our IT components and functions to use it for your country, and then we have absolutely no problem. This is a very good use of the database. And then I am seeing the Manuela's comments that also BCH right now currently that the BCH has the draft biosafety framework that was submitted in 2008. So I am taking this comment as an invitation to that you can also submit this framework document or the laws, and then all kind of relevant documents to BCH, so that you can really address and then also the fulfill the obligation of the Cartagena Protocol. So now that I'm seeing Johnny from Philippines. He's complimenting the presenters, and then he's saying that it's good to know that the BCH has created the link to GM under every country profile, and then we did too. So yes, there is a mutual links, and then you do cross-check. Okay, that's wonderful. And then you use Japan record as an example. Great. And then BCH, he noticed that 125 records, and then practically he thinks that the records in BCH should be more than GM food platform because it covers not only GM commodity events. It will be good if records in both databases sync to each other. Yes, indeed. So thank you very much for this comment. And then I will going back to Anita. Do you have the final comment, Anita, please?
Okay. My final comment is that actually Malaysia is a user of both databases, BCH as well as the FAO. So both databases are actually quite useful. But of course, like FAO database is probably a bit newer, and it doesn't have that extensiveness of the volume of information that has already been accumulated by BCH over the years. But all three databases has to grow at par. At least for Malaysia, we feel that the FAO database as well as the BCH database has to be in sync with one another, because then you start to doubt, oh, do I follow this database or that database? And also we have our national database. So I suppose my final comment is that yes, we have several databases that are existing, but information should, as far as possible, if possible, to sync it. Of course, there is the difficulty that there might be different focal persons for different databases. Perhaps like Masami mentioned earlier, that coordination at the global level and coordination also at the focal points of the various bases are actually quite important, so that we can make sure that it is in sync and people are confident to use all these databases, it kind of builds confidence that, you know, biosafety is taken care of, people are actually doing proper assessment, you know, that, you know, we can be sure that the GM food is safe to be consumed because the assessment was done. So, you know, these are the kind of things that will help people, because these databases are also accessible to public. So that's why we have to be careful, and we also have to be diligent in terms of making sure that, you know, the databases are actually useful. Those are my final comments.